Welcome back everybody to Skyrim's Mod of the Day episode 277, and this time I am looking at the Woodcutter mod by the author Semtex. Now before we get started, of course, you do require the SKSE plugin and Jackson's Positioner. Now of course this will be an in-depth review, but because most people like to see the mod in action first, I'm going to show that now. So let's get into the thick of it. As you can see, I am drawing a special axe which is added to the game. You get 4 of these, by the way, which I will go over more later. For now, we have got a large tree to start with, since I thought it was the best to demonstrate. And here we go. Hit the tree once and you will see it gets marked. And you can see the activator icon there, marked for cutting old tree. Now, trees will vary. For example, this tree, which is a giant pine tree, I believe, it takes 30 hits with an axe to knock down, and you'll get an indicator in the top left, like always, basically reminding you how many cuts you need. Now smaller trees of course do need less hits, and larger trees need more, so it's pretty damn well set up that way. Should only be a few more hits now, and this will, there we go, the flash you saw actually indicates that the tree itself has transformed into a trunk, which of course will fall down, and it is dependent on physics, and so will be the actual logs that you get from the trunk after cutting it some more. And we are left behind with a stump of course, which looks nice and lovely, doesn't it? It looks perfect. Now, like I said, these are dependent on physics, so if you are unlucky enough, this could kill you by falling on you, and it can also kill NPCs, I would imagine. If it can kill you, it can kill NPCs. So, just a word of warning there. Now, once you have a trunk, you need to basically repeat the initial process, which is hit the tree for a specific number of times, which in this case was 30. And this will eventually turn this into a set of branches. There we go. Branches and logs. As you can see, we've got a branch down here. This is a pine tree, so we get pine logs and branches. And there you go, we've got a 7x5 by 20 foot of a pine log, and as you can see, weight is a fair amount. It's 1,800 pounds, which is a lot. But yes, you do need some of these. But again, this will be dependent on the size of the tree to begin with. And we've got our little branches down here. And these will be needed for crafting, which I will get into right now. Now, you may remember me saying at the start of this video that you get 4 axes, and as you can see here, we've got the heavy iron woodcutter's axe, which acts as a 2-handed weapon. As you can see, battle axe versus a war axes. You get a heavy steel woodcutter's axe, and you get their single-handed equivalents. Now, I've tested this out, and so far from my experimentation, these do not have an effect on the amount of hits it takes on the trees, which in my opinion, it should be implemented, but it isn't a beta, and I think the mod author, if possible, will actually implement this anyway. So for example, if you've got a steel woodcutter's axe, it should take you, what, 10 hits to take down a tree? If you've got an iron woodcutter's axe, it should take you 20 hits. That's just a generic number for a generic tree, but you get my understanding. So for now, these are just here as is. Now to craft these, of course, go into your forge as usual, and you will find them, for example, under iron and steel. Eventually down here you will see them at the bottom. There we go. And you cannot use your normal axes, by the way, because if you do, the vanilla axes, they won't work, of course. It has to be these, because they initialize a script once you take them out, which the game does inform you of. And as you can see, they're fairly easy to craft anyway. Now you're probably thinking, why do we actually need the logs and the actual branches in the first place? Well, it's quite simple. If you go to the wood section of the forge, you will find a list of sawhorses. Now yes, they all do bear the same name, but if you look at the recipes, they do actually vary. Now I believe the mod author did this so you could actually craft them in a variety of ways versus being locked into a specific recipe, which I suppose is a really good idea. It does clog up the list a bit, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. Now it's time to get into the crafting itself. Now, before you actually can craft anything, you have to place down your sawhorse, which you can see there. To place an item, simply go to an area. I find it works better in first person. Go into your inventory and find an item. In this case, we're going to look at the tanning rack and press your drop key. You will see it appear, and that sometimes does happen, but this is a perfect opportunity to show you how to delete items. Using Jackson's Positioner, the default key is enter to grab an item. Now you can either pick the item up with the numpad minus key, I believe, but in this case I'm going to delete it by pressing the delete key, and there we go, it's gone. Sayonara. Now let's try and place that again. That's much better. Right, and by the way, again, you notice it's clipping in the floor. We'll use jacksons again, use page up, and we can move the item as well. And all that kind of stuff. You can also tilt the yaw, as you can see. You can roll it. It's fairly simple. Now, once it's actually been placed, we can use it eventually. If I go to the right goddamn side, it's a bit off. There we go. And you get, again, various items inside of here. For the tanning rack, we get loads of tents, which is really good in my opinion. If you're a survivalist kind of player, you can make makeshift campsites across Skyrim. We've got all these tents here, more sawhorses, more tents again, and the miscellaneous basically has leather strips, quills, and loads of rugs, really. Basically a lot of furniture, and this is what this mod essentially does. It allows you to craft furniture and items while on the move around Skyrim. Now let's go to the sawhorse real quick, because it's your first basic crafting table you will get, if you can call it a table. Under the miscellaneous section you will get firewood, which of course is firewood, it speaks for itself. If we go into the wood section, you can build barricades. Now that is really cool in my opinion, because placing barricades again, it's just awesome, especially if you're building little campsites and such. You can build a primitive workbench, which as you can see there, just above to the left, and we will be using that in a second. You can create more sawhorses if you are so inclined, tanning racks, which we just use, and wood chopping blocks, which of course get firewood. So let's exit this and let's go into the workbench. Now this is a primitive workbench and this is a common workbench. You craft a common workbench from the primitive workbench. Essentially they're like ranks of workbenches, and different ones I believe create different items. There's some physics work in there. So let's go in the primitive one. Again, if you go on the wood for example, let's go into the miscellaneous. I'm pretty sure some of them do have extra items, but I might be wrong about that, but we'll check that in a second. Again, you've got more items inside here to place around with your archery targets, and again, there's a plethora, trust me. As you can see, there's cots, orc, primitive workbench again right there, we've just built one, but why not? And sawhorses, etc., tanning racks, wood chopping blocks, wood beams, you get all of these, which all go into crafting, and all the other stuff. We go into iron, we get an armourer's workbench, of course, because you can't craft armour I should say, on these workbenches. You can only craft armour on an armour workbench, which is basically any blacksmith, as you can see there. And of course a grindstone to improve the weaponry. And if you go to Dwarven, again you can build wells, fireplaces, benches, it's literally anything you can think of really in the game. And combining that with Jackson's Positioner really allows you to create some nice little camps, or even extra little adjustments to any kind of building that's already in existence really. So let's go to the common one. I believe I saw some extra items in here before. As you can see, the primitive one, there's not as many options. There's only wood and miscellaneous in this. And again, you can see certain stuff, but I believe some items are, like common bed, for example. You can't get common bed in the primitive one, at least I don't think you can from memory. So, different workbenches produce different items. And I believe there are more workbenches than this. I believe there's a simple common workbench, and they actually may be more. And again, shelves, the list goes on. And a scriptorium there. A magic scriptorium. We'll look at that in a second. That is also nice and interesting in itself. Go to the miscellaneous, and again we get candlesticks and arcane enchanter workshop and alchemy workstations. Yes, you can create them in here as well. So again, you can make your own, pretty much you could almost make yourself your own house or hut out of this anywhere in the world. Do it yourself, just like Hearthstone. So basically, there's no need for modders really in that respect. If you just want to do it yourself in your own position and you don't want to mess around with the creative kit, which I can understand. I just took a quick second there just to place a few more scriptoriums so we can look at the different types. This one of course is your common scriptorium. This one is a noble one I believe. This is noble, and then one of them is, well, either way. These are 3 different types of scriptoriums. This one over here is actually a magic scriptorium. You get them in both varieties, even these ones. You can get them in normal, which as you can see there, or you can get a magic variety with soul gems on the little table with the extra quill. Now, I will use this one because it just looks the best, right? And it's magic. Going into these, you can create a variety of things. In the magic ones, you can create soul gems, of course, with, again, just like in a normal situation. And you can actually create light sources in these, as you can see. Yep, you can adjust light sources, right? You can create lights for your campsite, so you can really, it's really in depth. It's a big mod is this, and it's obviously not for the faint at heart. Now, if you go down here, you will notice that there is soul gem dust and all that kind of stuff. But you might notice something different of this list, and that is the Myths of Sheogorath. That is because I have this book in my inventory, because these scriptoriums, assuming you have the quills, allow you to actually craft a book. You can copy your books and your scrolls to your heart's content. That might be useful for some people, it might not be for others, but isn't that a great feature? As you can see, you need a quill to actually get the option in the first place, and then for example for Myths of Sheogorath you need 4 rolls of paper, an inkwell and some leather for the actual cover, of course. Now that is a great feature in my opinion, and of course it is well appreciated. While we're still here, however, I would like to point your attention to these logs over here. If you go over to them now, you can see it's called wood storage. That's right, you've got these in a few places I believe according to the author's description. This basically allows you to, you guessed it, store your wood. So if you're mining this area for example, and you saw some of them like these weigh £1,800, that one's 600, that's the £1,800 one. Basically you can just bring them over here and store them straight away, so it's really convenient. Finally, I'd like to say I decided to make my own little base right on this little plateau up here, just to show you what it can do. Okay, I lied a bit. I didn't really have the time to create a massive little improvement on the area because it does take a lot of time if you've got OCD like me, but as you can see I placed one little barricade down there which I was going to finish but it kind of glitched out on me. I would recommend quick saving every time you put an item down, basically. And if you look inside my new little tent that I've placed here, we can go inside of it, we can also take it if we please and pick it back up again. But you noticed I've got a common scriptorium and I've placed it on the table this time, which looks a lot better, doesn't it? And of course it works wonderfully. You see, there we go. Isn't that grand? I probably could have put that a bit closer to avoid the paper hanging off the table, but whatever. And this mod can do so much more. If you've got the time to place items and such, you can create vast new areas in my opinion. It's just that good. Having great access to all the items, all the furniture, it's just a godsend really. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like or dislike it if you didn't enjoy it. Don't forget to leave a comment down below if your feelings are more complicated than that. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. As always, if you like the mod, endorse it, but please keep in mind it is still a beta, so any problems currently, they will eventually get ironed out, of course. And if you want to, remember, donations are always available to the actual authors themselves if they have changed your life in the game significantly. Oh, and one last thing before we go, I did forget to mention earlier, this will work on some mod added trees as well from certain flora mods, because essentially if the mod authors add pine trees to an area, those pine trees for example would be eligible, at least they should be. That's it for this time guys, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.